Hi, good morning. First, I would like to thank Ann Peters for providing information about her traveling Raidhead chapter in the new publication, Images in Action in the Southern Indian Iconographic Series. I was fortunate to receive a copy of this groundbreaking publication last weekend, and it has helped me contextualize my paper in terms of the broader topic of the Southern Andean Iconographic Series. It includes far southern Peru, western Bolivia, and northern Chile, and northwestern Argentina, is the focus of a reclaimed interpretive model that views the region as an interaction sphere of cultural relationships across long distances and time periods. This approach identifies a core set of symbols, the raid head, staff god, and profile attendants that appear on a wide range of objects throughout the Southern Andes. This complex of images and decorative art has been named the Southern Andean Iconographic Series, and this paper focuses on one of those symbols, the raid head. Numerous scholars have examined the motif, which is referred to as a raid head because the headband or crown has radiating appendages that encircle the head. Ann Peters has written the most extensively about the motif, focusing primarily on textiles, although she also discusses ceramics and gold objects. She traces the occurrence of the image on the south coast among the Paracas, Nasca, and Pucara cultures, and compares them to representations in the Altiplano regions of Arequipa and the Lake Titicaca Basin. Karen Moore Chavez and Sergio Chavez have examined various manifestations of the raid head and other motifs on stone sculptures at various sites in the Titicaca Basin, such as Pucara, and have associated them with the Yaya Mama religious tradition, a movement that unified a number of diverse groups and laid the foundation for the later Tiwanaku style. George Haberle has written about the raid head motif, which he also refers to as the front-face deity, in a new textile tradition that he identified as Sihuas 1, 2, and 3, based upon iconography, style, color sequences, weaving techniques, and when available, radiocarbon dates. This textile tradition is located in the Sihuas River Valley in the department of Arequipa, Peru, and the raid head is the dominant symbol on Sihuas 1 textiles. The raid head is also the principal figure in another textile tradition identified by Haberle and named Provincial Pucara, also located in the department of Arequipa. These last two textile traditions, Sihuas 1 and Provincial Pucara, are the focus of my paper, in which I will examine the raid head motif in association with step platforms. On these textiles, the raid heads and their associated secondary figures are supernatural beings because they have some or all of the following attributes: vertically divided eyes, tear lines, crossed fangs, open mouths showing teeth, a crown with appendages ending in different motifs, wings on beings other than birds, human hands or feet on animals, and human heads on animal bodies. The association of the raid head and the step platform is a variation of the raid head form, which together with the other core symbols will continue to be used throughout the later Middle Horizon period at the site of Tiwanaku in western Bolivia. The time period of this paper is from the late early Horizon through the early intermediate period, approximately 350 BCE to 545 CE. Although it is important to note that most of the textiles illustrated in this talk lack provenience, and only a few have radiocarbon dates. This period in the Southern Andean region was characterized by the rise of independent states, such as the Nasca culture on the south coast and the Pucara culture in the Altiplano, just northwest of Lake Titicaca. Less is known about the people who lived in the coastal river valleys of the Arequipa region in the far south of Peru. It is likely that settlements were small due to the geography, which is characterized by deep canyons formed by rivers and plateaus of grasslands rising thousands of feet above sea level. A combination of terraced agriculture and llama and alpaca herding were the likely primary means of subsistence, and caravans of llamas were used to transport trade goods over great distances and to facilitate the exchange of ideas. Haberle has suggested that the provincial Pucara culture introduced the theme of the raid head atop a three-step platform, but it is my contention that stepped platforms in association with raid heads occur even earlier in Sihuas I textiles, which date from about 350 BCE to 100 CE. Sihuas I textiles are square or rectangular and are characterized by a linear style that is often highly abstract. The raid heads are rectangular in shape and framed by a band from which 8 zigzagging appendages emerge, one from each corner and one from the middle of each side. Animals, snakes, and enigmatic figures with a cross or eye-shaped body and perpendicular zigzag lines suggesting wings. Haberle has proposed that these enigmatic figures may represent insects, birds, or plants. There are always snakes with zigzag bodies in the space between the horizontal and diagonal appendages. These snakes can be single or double-headed, and sometimes they look like they have ears. Snakes are an important signifier on Sihuas I and provincial Pucara textiles, and I will return to them later. Sihuas I weaving techniques are highly varied and include discontinuous interlocking warp and weft, interlocking tapestry, cross-looping, balanced plain weave, spraying, and tie-dye, but only one technique was used exclusively for textile depicting the raid head motif, discontinuous double interlocking warp and weft. This technique was used for mantles, tunics, and rectangular textiles with corner ties such as the one seen here. The function of these textiles is unknown because none have been scientifically excavated, but Haberle suspects that they were likely used for hanging or burial, since it is hard to imagine how they would have been worn. The fibers are always canneled with a twist that is 2Z into S or 2S into Z. Discontinuous double interlocking warp and weft is used to create pure color areas, and it is one of the most demanding weaving techniques because the warp and weft threads discontinue or change with every color. The use of this difficult technique, the complexity of the designs, and the discovery of at least 80 textiles to date testifies to the sophistication and skill of Sihuas I weavers. Textiles were also the dominant form of artistic expression because no decorated pottery has been found in the Sihuas Valley. Haberle divides the raid heads into 3 groups, A, B, and C, based upon appendage style, background color, and secondary figures. There are 2 kinds of appendages. Group A and B are split at the end and recurve in opposite directions, as you see on the left. And Group C ends in a square or rectangle, except for the horizontal appendages that do not have a specific ending, as you see on the right. Raid head groups are also differentiated by background color. Group A is usually white and sometimes red, and a human figure with raised arms is placed between the vertical and horizontal appendages. The background color of Group B ranges from blue to dark blue, but is sometimes red, and the space between the appendages is more crowded. The background color of Group C is hardly visible due to crowding by secondary designs. In this group, human figures are infrequent, and the background is filled with zigzags and other filler lines. I was able to examine one Sihuas I textile in a private collection in New York, which is the textile on the upper left. The cream-colored background in natural cannelid fiber accentuates the bold designs in red, blue, and brown, and I was struck by how the diagonal appendages create pyramid-shaped spaces on all 4 sides of the raid head. I believe these spaces reference a sacred or ritual chamber that could be architectural or located in the supernatural realm. In addition, the lateral appendages are often independent of the head's rectangular frame and become a type of interior wall where the sacred chambers that enclose human and/or enigmatic figures. These figures could be supernatural beings or ritual attendants. Returning back to the snakes, I believe that their presence adjacent to the diagonal appendages, as well as their occasional appearance at the end of the lateral ones, is evidence for the sacred nature of the space and is possibly a fertility reference that ties the worship of the rayed head to ceremonies that may focus on the sun, agricultural cycle, camelid herding, and the importance of water. The following provincial Pucara textiles show a more explicit connection between sacred chambers and snakes, and a more realistic depiction of the association of the rayed head and stepped platform. Provincial Pucara textiles are constructed of camelid fibers in the interlocked tapestry weave technique, sometimes with paired warps. Due to similarities with Pucara iconography, Haberle named this textile tradition Provincial Pucara because Arequipa is far from the Pucara heartland in the Titicaca Basin. This relationship with the type site of Pucara is not far-fetched because there is evidence of population movement for Pucara stone sculptures have been discovered as far north as the province of Chumbivilcas in the department of Cusco. Pucara people could have also migrated westward and settled in Arequipa. To date, it is not possible to identify where provincial Pucara textiles were made or the scope of their distribution because none have been excavated in archaeological context, but their good state of preservation suggests burial in alluvial terraces or placement in cold and dry highland caves. Haberle has identified 3 provincial Pucara rayed head themes, designated A, B, and C, that are represented on tunics. They all have vertically divided eyes surrounded by a red band, tier lines, and crowns with radiating appendages encircling the heads. Variations are based upon the number and type of appendage, the number and arrangement and orientation of the attendant figures, and decorative elements on the rayed head itself, such as a dark rectangle on the chin, possibly representing a labret, or designs on the crown that are S-forms or interlocking frets. On each textile, the corner appendages end in the same animal head, which is topped by 2 L-shaped appendages resembling antennae. In fact, all animal and human attendant figures have these antennae, perhaps another supernatural attribute. This tunic illustrates the position of the shoulder panels, which have the same iconography as the individual shoulder panel on the right. This panel allegedly comes from the vicinity of Cochate in the Majes Valley and has a radiocarbon date of 130 to 421 CE. The tunic has no provenience, but has a radiocarbon date of 135 to 435 CE, so both textiles are contemporaneous. Haberle designates the iconography as rayed head theme A. It has 16 radiating appendages, including 8 that resemble feathers, 6 attendant figures, a nose in the form of a small female head, and a crown band decorated with repeating S motifs. The 6 attendant figures flanking the central head are smaller versions of it, stacked one above the other. The 3-step platform contains a frontal female head, and the first step is flanked on both sides by a profile head with tier lines and a tall crown. The multiple representation of female heads on both textiles suggest an association with female deity veneration. The next 3 panels are similar in iconography and represent rayed head theme B. None of them have provenience, although Haberle suspects they are from Arequipa. There are no radiocarbon dates, so they have been assigned the temporal range of provincial Pucara, which is 30 to 545 CE. All 3 rayed heads have 24 appendages ending in rings and crown bands decorated with interlocking frets. The faces have vertically divided eyes, a T-shaped nose, and eyebrows with an indentation at the top. Tier lines with 3 concentric rectangles or circles, probably representing tears, an open mouth showing teeth, and a dark triangle on the chin. The 3-step platform has a concentric rectangle in the center, from which emerge 4 yellow and red striped bands forming a cross. Profile heads with forked tongues flank the first step, and the horizontal yellow and red band inside the platform becomes their snake-like bodies. On all three panels, a snake-like creature is associated with the stepped platform and its interior chamber. The attendant figures face the rayed head and have full bodies shown in profile, wings, vertically divided eyes, and antennae, all attributes of their supernatural status. Mythical beings like these with divided eyes, tear lines, antennae, and forked tongues are also seen on Pucara decorated pottery from the Titicaca Basin. I was able to examine two of these shoulder panels. The first, on the upper right, is in the collection of the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. It is paired orbs and is woven in two parts that are joined down the center. The panel has 10 attendant figures. 8 are birds, probably condors, and 2 are human figures with bird bodies and hands that grasp a snail shell. The bird figures are standing, while the human bird figures are kneeling or running toward the principal figure. 2 smaller avian figures flank the platform. The second shoulder panel on the bottom is in a New York private collection and was framed, so I was unable to examine it closely. It is only 8 attendant figures, and they are from top to bottom an anthropomorphic fish, a man holding a snail, and a bird. The anthropomorphic fish and man are kneeling or running toward the rayed head, while the 2 birds are standing. The 2 fox-like creatures flanking the platform are also in a kneeling or running pose, with their bodies facing the platform, while their heads face backwards toward the other attendants. The shoulder panel on the upper left is in a private collection. There are 10 winged attendant figures, 8 facing the rayed head and 2 flanking the step platform. The attendants from top to bottom represent an anthropomorphic fish, a bird, a man holding a snail, and a condor. The 2 attendants next to the platform are deer with antlers, representing the taruca, a deer indigenous to the Andes region. On this striking and densely packed tunic, the rayed head above the step platform occupies the entire center of the garment's 2 sides. The piece, which is in a private collection, is referred to as the gateway tunic because its iconography resembles the imagery on the gateway of the sun at Tiwanaku, but the textile's provenance is unknown. Based upon the iconography, scholars have speculated that it's provincial Pucara or Tiwanaku, a debate that was not resolved by the 2 recent radiocarbon dates that confirmed that it was made sometime between 337 and 414 CE, dates that coincide with both cultures. The tunic has all 3 core symbols that make up the Southern Andean iconographic series: the rayed head, staff god, and profile attendants. All figures have vertically divided eyes and other attributes signifying their supernatural status. The rayed head has 24 appendages, 20 ending in rings and 4 in profile animal heads, and the crown band is decorated with interlocking frets. The face has vertically divided eyes outlined in red, a T-shaped nose, and eyebrows, tear lines with 3 concentric rectangles, and an open mouth showing teeth. The 3-step platform is tall and narrow and has concentric rectangles in the center from which emerge 4 yellow and red striped bands, the horizontal one becoming the zigzag body of 2 profile snake heads with forked tongues that are the platform's bottom steps. The bodies of the 2 attendant winged animals face the platform, but their heads turn toward the 18 human figures arranged in 3 rows around the rayed head. These standing frontal figures are women based upon their long tunics, mantles. They wear elaborate crown headdresses and hold a variety of objects in outstretched hands. The staff head on the shoulder panel is a staff goddess, identified by her long belted tunic, mantle, and ear pendants. Her crown has a tufted appendage and 2 checkered crosses in the center with additional animal head, bird appendages. I'm going to skip ahead. Above her, the perspective changes, and 2 running figures in profile, holding a staff in one hand and possibly a snail in the other, face the building's entrance. Notice the 3 appendages ending in bird heads that emerge from each side of the building. They resemble the snake-like creatures seen inside and outside the sacred ritual chambers designated on Sihuas 1 and provincial Pucara textiles. I'm skipping ahead. Okay. Conclusion. In conclusion, the raid head is one of the core symbols of the Southern Indian iconographic series, and its manifestation in association with a step platform is a variation of this complex. A closer look at the iconography of Sihuas I Textiles reveals that a step platform or ritual chamber may be embedded in the raid head motif. Unlike provincial Pucara depictions, in which elements of the iconography can be traced to the architecture and artifacts found at the type site of Pucara, no centers of Sihuas I culture have yet been found, much less undisturbed funerary sites that could provide more information. For both cultures, textiles were the dominant form of artistic expression for conveying symbolic content that was deeply local, and they developed distinct styles for depicting the raid head in labor-intensive techniques that underscored their cultural and religious significance. While it is only conjecture, the images and exquisite garments on which they were produced were likely associated with a veneration of the life-giving power of the sun and rain that were needed for agriculture and the fertility of the camelid herds. Thank you very much.